Like the hat? I think it's safe to say John Wayne ate steak. And if there's a meal more fundamentally American, I don't know what it is. But think about it. Steak is a meal born of wide open spaces, big skies, and even bigger wallets. Of course John Wayne ate steak. He was a stinking millionaire, a movie star. Steak's been the favorite chow of the rich and famous ever since refrigerated boxcars and feedlots made them readily available in the late 19th century. Before then, pretty much only cowboys got to eat steak. Now, I'm not complaining, okay? I mean, this T-bone is sweet, believe me. I just feel that average Joes like me shouldn't have to fork over a fistful of presidents every time we want to eat one. So, the thing that I'm thinking is that
we don't take ass cards.
Oh, sorry, I didn't notice that. So I've been thinking ever since our first steak show, that we should really take some time to look at those oft-overlooked cuts that, when deftly handled, take it all, can deliver delight without delivering you into debt. Of course, if we want to get top-drawer flavor at bottom-drawer prices, we're going to have to familiarize ourselves with a little offbeat bovine anatomy, and we're going to have to bone up on our tactical skills. Oh, thank you. You can keep the rest, son. So stick around, won't you? Because in the next half hour, we are going to prove beyond a doubt that steak doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg in order to be good eats. As you may recall from our premiere episode, Stake Your Claim, the steaks that we buy down at the local Megamart are actually cut or fabricated from larger cuts or primals. You may also recall that the real money steaks come from... Okay, all right, well, You may also recall that the real money steaks, the tenderloin, ribeye, and whatnot, come from the middle of the cow, on the back. Why? Well, because it's the furthest from the horn and the hoof. I'll get to you later. Don't understand what I'm talking about? Well, just make like a cow. Forward, march. Now, you're going to notice pretty quick that your neck, your shoulders, your arms, and your rump get tired mighty fast. It's because they're bearing all the load. Well, same on a steer, which is why the cuts taken from those areas are pretty gosh darn tough. As a matter of fact, the only areas that don't get really tired are your back and your abdominals. Now, the back doesn't do a lot of work on a steer either, and that's why the cuts from those areas are relatively tender and relatively expensive. Now, as for your abdominals, well, they may not be bearing any load, but remember, whether you're a cow or a person trying to walk like a cow, they do work 24/7, doing a job we call breathing, which is why those cuts will be really, really tough if they're not cooked with care. And it is care worth taking because, Bessie, come on, because those cuts from the area called the plate are where we get flank steaks and the wonderful skirt steak. Good girl. In the days before World War II, plate-based cuts like the flank and skirt steak were called butcher's cuts. That's because butchers had such a hard time selling them during the week that they usually took them home on Saturday night and enjoyed them on the cheap. But following World War II, a flank-based application called London broil became all the rage in America. But only in America. In London, they never heard of it. I never have quite figured that out. Anyway, the price of flank steak has been going up ever since. But that's okay with me because I have always preferred skirt steak. Now, if you have ever eaten at a Tex-Mex place, you've probably had fajitas and therefore skirt steak. But I'm betting that was outside skirt steak. And outside skirt's kind of a scrawny piece of meat, kind of tough and greasy, and it's really only good for, well, fajitas. But inside skirt, that's a whole nother animal. Take a look at this. What's unique is this grain structure. It's very, very pronounced, and it runs crosswise rather than up and down the way it does in, say, a strip steak. This grain provides us with some challenges and with some real advantages. Now, one steak is usually enough for about 8 diners, and this one weighs in at about 2.5 pounds. It's perfect. As for all this fat, don't worry about it. It's going to melt right off. This skirt steak, with its high surface-to-mass ratio and vertical grain, responds especially well to marination. Say, half a cup of olive oil to help carry the fat-soluble flavors and lubricate the meat fibers, a third of a cup of soy sauce, that's salt, you know, 4 scallions, 2 large cloves of garlic, or say 6 to 8 little ones, the juice of 2 ripe limes, that's acid, you know, half a teaspoon each red pepper flakes and ground cumin, and last but not least, 3 tablespoons of dark brown sugar. Oh, and I like to grate mine the old-fashioned way from what they call in Mexico a piloncillo. Now just give everything a whirl. Marinade meat contact is key here, so I don't like to do my marinating in a dish or a pan. I like to do it in a zip-top bag, the biggest one you can get hold of. Now, to make this a little bit easier to deal with, I've cut the steak into 3 pieces. I'm just going to stick that all inside the bag. I'm not going to care how I get it in there. There we go. And then just pour in the marinade right on top. Good, nice and thick. Now, when you seal the bag, get as much of the air out as possible. Just kind of leave a little bitty hole. Deflate. There we go. Nice firm seal. And then you just kind of squish it around. This is the fun part. Let your kids do it. Now, I really don't think this is going to leak in the refrigerator, but you never know, and you can't fool with cross-contamination. So we will stick with our sanitation protocols. Put this on the bottom shelf. Now, since the surface-to-mass ratio is so high, that only has to marinate for about an hour. And I know what you're thinking right now. You're wondering, what exactly is the difference between a brine and a marinade? Good question. A brine is essentially salty water, as in briny deep. A piece of meat soaked in a brine absorbs salt and water, and so it tends to cook up moister and more flavorful than a non-brine piece of meat. The word marinade comes from the word marine, but technically speaking, marinades contain acids, such as wine, vinegar, and citrus juice. Now, despite the fact that hundreds of horror movies have conditioned us to believe that acids dissolve meats on contact, the truth is, commercial tenderizers use enzymes, not acids, to break foods down. One of the most common is called papain, and it's extracted from papayas and pineapples. If you want to see papain in action, just mix up some stew meat, say some pork, some mashed papaya chunks, maybe a little red pepper for color, cover, bake for a couple of hours. Okay, that was hot, but it was also extremely mushy, like cat food. Even if you like that sort of thing, papain can't do its thing unless it reaches oven temperatures. So marinating meat in it doesn't make any sense, okay? So what have we learned? Well, we've learned that acid doesn't tenderize meat nearly as well as enzymes. But acids can help you to tenderize your own food. That's because acids taste tangy, and tangy tastes tell our saliva glands to do their stuff. And saliva is full of enzymes. Since it is wafer thin, skirt steak needs to be cooked quickly. Otherwise, it won't have a chance to develop that crispy crust it needs before the interior turns to toast. This means we need to apply direct heat. But as anyone who's ever cooked a steak over charcoal can attest, this almost always results in flame-ups. You know, the soot-producing flames that result anytime the fat runs out of the meat, travels through the air onto the coals below. The way I see it, the meat and the heat are must-haves in this equation, but the air, not so much. So, we don't need this. That way, there's no air. And if there's no air, there's no way we can have flames. So, we will cover the meat nicely and do a little ash management. Obviously, you don't want to do this near your house. Fire in the hole! Uncover meat. No, I'm not crazy. Here's the thing. Now the coals directly under the meat can't get any oxygen, so there won't be any flames. That is going to be perfectly charred in 60 seconds. And I don't care how much it hisses and how much it smokes or complains, do not touch that.